Okay, welcome everybody to our council meeting, town of Neepawa for April 19, 2022. We're going to start off with a public hearing on a 2022 financial plan. So I need to get a motion or a resolution on that, please. So moved by Deputy Mayor Henry, seconded by Councilor Gerard. Be it resolved, the Council of Town of Neepawa do not open this public hearing to hear representation to the financial plan for 2022. All in favor? Carried. Okay, Jamie, our CFO, I think she's going to go ahead and show us the plan.
Tonight's presentation will start with an overview of completed and proposed projects, the assessment, revenue, and expenses, followed by utilities and an explanation of the impact on the taxpayers. I would like to thank everyone for attending the financial plan hearing and to let you know that there'll be a chance for questions following the presentation. The town's vision is to continue to grow into a diverse community that supports unlimited possibilities and opportunities, while providing essential services, a safe community, accountability, and engaging residents and businesses to invest in our community. The financial plan is the tool that the municipality uses to achieve these goals. In 2021, completed projects we had were the RCMP building at 60%. We purchased some fire protection, the JAWS, dryer, thermal cameras. Tennis courts were roughly 50% completed. Road construction, paving on the CN property. Commerce Street and Mountain intersection was 50% completed. And our reservoir at the water plant was also 50% completed. This year's budgeted plans are road construction, as we have many projects in the works, reconfiguration of Mill Street, finishing Commerce and Mountain Avenue, Davidson Street, CN property, to name a few. The fire department will be getting a new truck, the finishing of the RCMP build, working on flood restoration at Park Lake, and the recreational plan, as we have applied for many grants to help with these needed upgrades. There is a basic formula for calculating taxes in the province of Manitoba. It has three parts: assessment, mill rate, and dollar value requirements. So basically, assessment times mill rate will give you the tax levy. Or another way is we take what dollar amount we need to maintain and improve services, divide it by assessment, and it gives us a mill rate, which is how we then charge taxes. Assessment Services is the department responsible for the assessment of all real and personal property in the province, excluding the property in the city of Winnipeg. In Manitoba, property is assessed at market value in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. Market value is the most probable selling price of the property. Regular reassessment ensures that property evaluations keep pace with real estate markets conditions and that property taxes are fair. This happens every 2 years. The values are determined by the assessment branch and are based on market values for the most part, with the exception of some types of commercial property, which may be valued by different methods. In Manitoba, only a portion of the total property value is subject to taxation. The province sets different ratios for different types of properties. For example, residential is charged at 45%, farm is 26%, and commercial is 65% of the total value. The municipality then applies the portioned assessment by the mill rate to calculate the taxes for a property. Our assessment base is made up of 57% is residential properties, 34% is commercial, with 9 being exempt properties like churches, schools, and hospitals. In 2022, Neepawa's total assessment increased by 2.99% from last year. So now one mill will raise roughly $202,000. Our mill rate for this year is 22.06 and has increased 1.5% from last year. The school's mill rate has seen a decrease of 1% to 11.025. The educational sport levy, which does not apply to residential ratepayers, has decreased by 1% also. We have no control over these mill rates as they are set by the province of Manitoba and the local school board. Your total property tax bill is made up of 65% municipal and 35% school. So only 65% of what you pay is going towards the town operations. Our budgeted municipal revenues for 2022 are around 17 million. And the makeup of this revenue is 29% from property taxes, 31% from conditional government transfers, 5% from unconditional government transfers, 3% from user fees and sales of goods, 30% reserve transfer in, and 1% for both other income and permits, licenses, and fines. This year, our total tax levy is seeing an increase of about $249,000, or approximately 3.62%. This includes both the school and the municipal taxes. Our revenues plan for this year, which take into account our rentals, fines, permits, licenses, fees, grants, and sales, will see an increase of about 58.65%. Whereas our transfer in from reserves will see a decrease of 1.22%. Overall, this leaves the requirement for taxation at a value of around 4.8 million, or a 4.44% increase from last year. This year's total budgeted expenditures are around 17 million, which match our total budgeted revenues as we have to have a balanced budget. Our expenditures are made up of 6% for general government services, which is the office, the elected officials, legal, insurance, and grants. 7% is protective services, which is our fire and police. 36% is transportation services, which is your public works, your engineering, your snow removal, equipment repairs, drainages, street lighting, and airport. 3.5% is your environmental health, which is your garbage and recycling. 2% is health and welfare, which is your cemeteries and social assistance. 0.25% is your environmental development, which is your planning and weed control. 2% is economic development. 4% is recreation and culture, so your swimming pools, parks, playgrounds, campground, and library. 35% is your fiscal services, which is your debenture payments, bank fees, and capital. And 4% is your reserve appropriations. Expenditure changes from last year to this year are seeing increases in all except environmental development and fiscal services capital. Most are small increases to more accurately reflect costs, with the exception of transportation services, as this is where the repair of our flood damage is recorded. Public health is also seeing an increase as we're put money away to start prep work for the new hospital, and economic development has been allotted for the construction of towers at the bike park as long as we get a grant to help cover these costs. Council has changed the approach they used in deciding what organizations receive grants. They have followed these rules regarding the over $163,000 worth of grants being issued. In addition to supporting very important and worthy organizations, Council wanted to ensure equity and fairness for all taxpayers, even if they did not normally utilize the organization or facilities receiving the grants. You will note in some instances, Council is taking the position of creating partnerships in the form of exchange of services in order to expand the use of facility or program on a broader basis. The primary goal is to increase exposure for the organization and to create additional opportunities for those who may not otherwise access certain programs or services. Council has chosen a variety of recipients for the grants this year and are thrilled to support these great organizations. Letters will be sent following the passing of the budget to each of the recipients that have received a grant this year. This year's capital purchases are amounting to about $5.5 million and are as follows. $530,000 for a fire truck, $11,000 for turnout gear, $3,000 for communication, $16,000 for a RAM, $3.4 million to finish the RCMP building. Our office capital is seeing $2,000 towards office furniture and $12,000 towards some computer upgrades. The pool is seeing the recreational plan of $360,000, along with some building upgrades for $1,000. Public Works, there's boulevard and drainage for $60,000, road construction for $805,000, and some equipment purchases for $305,000. This year, Council will commit the following contributions to the reserves: $65,000 to fire, $15,000 to the general reserve, $50,000 to the healthcare facility, $150,000 to Public Works and Environment, and $75,000 to Recreation and Culture. We have also budgeted to transfer monies from some of these reserves to help reduce the burden on the taxpayer for 2022. Now on to utility operating budget. Revenues will equate to roughly $8.7 million and are made up of 28% from water bill income, 1% from hydrant rentals, 61% from other revenue, and 11% from reserves transfer in. The utility expenditures make up about $8.7 million. 15% is water treatment and supply, 3% is sewer collection and disposal, 77% is capital projects, 1% is reserve allocations, and 4% is debenture payments. Expenditure changes have been made to more accurately reflect costs, with larger increases in administration, sewer, and reserves. We are seeing an increase in capital as we may be getting a grant to do Phase 2 of the Lagoon project, which may happen this year if that grant comes through. This year's capital purchases are amounting to around $6.7 million. We're finishing the reservoir for $2.2, a groundwater study for $90,000, $78,000 for some replacements, and a $399,000 sewer reline and installs, along with $4 million in Phase 2 of the Lagoon project. This was to be debentured, but we may be able to get a grant that will cover a large portion of it. If this is the case, we'll proceed this year, otherwise we will wait till next. Our utility water reserve is seeing a contribution of $100,000, along with a withdrawal for the reservoir for $542,500. And the utility reserve is seeing a contribution of $12,000. So what this means for the taxpayer. So if you take a property valued at $300,000 times by its portioned assessment and the mill rate, you're going to see roughly a $45 change in value from last year to this year on your property taxes, which equates to about a 1.57% increase.
Jamie. Okay, there it is. Do we have anybody in the audience that has anything they'd like to bring forward? Yeah. You want to sit someplace?
I'll just stand. I won't be there that long.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and visitors. I appreciate being able to spend a few minutes with you. It will be just a very few minutes. Three items. Not particular questions to any particular point in the budget, but I want to thank you for all the work you've done on getting the budget in place. It is an impressive budget, certainly larger than even a few years ago when I was in your chair. And so certainly with no small amount of credit is due to council and staff for the growth that has taken place, and I appreciate it. I'd like to just bring up one thing that I don't mean to make it a sore point by any means, but I have to, I talked to Deputy Mayor Heavy about this the other day, that I do believe, and I'm not trying to create an argument here, but I do believe that if you compare to 10 years ago, that the snow removal has deteriorated in the town. I know it was quite a blast this last time, obviously, but I think the streets used to be cleaned sooner, more quickly. And it was partly because the contractor of the day was willing or required to or whatever to work at night. There's very little night snow removal takes place. I can tell because they're not waking me up anymore. It was right on that street that was very busy with snow removal at times. But anyway, I think that needs to be revisited. When you compare snow removal in some communities to Neepawa ranks much better. But in terms of many other communities, it doesn't rank up there at all. And it's still tough getting around town right now, and particularly troublesome for people who might have mobility issues, but also for the business community, especially the downtown business community. I think they're taking quite a hit every time we get snow. I'd like to speak for just a minute about recreation facilities. I have a little handout here, a bit of a historical piece. Kind of that can go around. This is a piece that was written by myself originally in 2008, and it's a history of recreation facilities in Neepawa, and it's called 10 Discussion Starters for Neepawa. It was republished almost word for word in 2015, 7 years later, and now it is now 14 years old or 7 years old, depending on which version of the piece you have there. The recreation facilities in Neepawa are, as you know, quite unique. As far as I know, and maybe others, I don't know any other town in Neepawa, certainly the size of Neepawa, where the town does not own the hall, the rink, perhaps the curling rink, and in many cases the golf club as well. And I've always been a proponent of the private corporations, the publicly elected boards. I've chaired the Yellowhead board for a number of years, and one time was a golf club member, and I've always been a strong proponent of that model. But I think perhaps the time has come to take a very serious look at changing that. And one of the reasons is, and I know the people who make up the budget won't be happy with me saying this, but they know it better than I do, is that the amount of money that the town of Neepawa puts into recreation lags way, way behind most other communities. The last time we did a comparison between Neepawa and Carberry was a few years ago, I knew, but the amount of money that Carberry puts into recreation probably double or triple of what town Neepawa does. The general consensus is certainly around the Yellowhead board, and thank you to Councillor Nadeau, Councillor Pundle for being on the Yellowhead board. I'm an alternate on there. I was with them last night at the board meeting, and sitting in the board meeting there occasionally in the Yellowhead as an alternate supporting the Neepawa Kentucky movement. And the two councils, by the way, are doing a very good job on the Yellowhead board. That hasn't always been the case. Sometimes it wasn't past, it was very, very difficult to find councillors who would be willing to take the time and take a real interest in the affairs of the Yellowhead. And I think that's a great step forward. I think that the time has come to take a real solid look at where we're going in the future with recreation. The Yellowhead rink right now is being built in, having been built in 1972, I believe, is now considerably older than the rink it replaced. So at 50 years, coming up in the next year to 50. We're in our 50th year now. It's a good facility, but it certainly needs ongoing repairs. Now, as ongoing repairs on that site, with the direction the town wants to go, or the community wants to go, I guess that remains to be seen. And for both it and the hall. I think that the 100,000 that you see in the budget here tonight for the Yellowhead is good. It's more than the 70 that was put in a number of years ago, and gradually went up 75, 80, now it's up to $100,000. To do the job that needs to be done, in my opinion, and it's a ballpark estimate, I think that the Yellowhead would have to spend at least $3 million to bring it up to where it should be. And some people might say that's a whole lot of money, but it's not near as much as the probably $30 million it would take to replace that facility. And by the time we get around to it, it could easily be that. One of the things that always frustrated me about the Yellowhead is that for at least 20 years they've had a guaranteed loan, well not guaranteed, a loan promise that the credit union for $500,000 towards capital. It's never been used. It's been there for 20 years. Had it been used initially 20 years ago and paid off in 5, then they would have had $500,000 worth of stuff done at 2000 prices, and then another $500,000 in 2005, 2010, 2015, 2020. We'd had $2.5 million worth of improvements at old prices. Now we're faced with still needing the $2.5 million worth of improvements, but we're facing with 2022 prices. The last thing we want to address is that, and I know that some of you probably have an idea of where the hospital is going to be located. I do not, in spite of the fact that I once a month faithfully send an email to Brian Schoonbart at the RHA, because I've known Brian for a long time, sat on committees with him years ago. And I say, Brian, what's up? Anyway, the answer is always no decision yet. So when they said they were going to put the hospital, make a location for the hospital in January, I was just wondering which year they meant in mind. But anyway, we thought it was 2022. The one long-term concern I have is if there's anybody there on the table that has any influence on this, and relating this to the recreation facilities. If the curling club or the Yellowhead were to ever move, the golf course is where it should move to. And the reason the curling club isn't at the golf course now is because the water line did not reach out that far until the late 80s when it was built to service Spring Hill Farms, or what is now Highway. And they needed town water to have a facility of that nature. And so that was one of the reasons the curling club was put on the west side of town instead of on the east side of town. The Yellowhead could go there as well. Of course, it means getting land, and accumulating some land, and making some deals with people, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just hoping that if they do put the hospital on the east side, they don't crowd it too close to the golf course to seal off future development for recreation. And if the hospital needs 40 acres, recreation probably needs at least that amount of area for parking and for building and for everything else. And you know from other communities that when the hall or the curling rink or the community hall is located side by side, cheek by jowl with the golf course, you have a very, very fine facility. Someday the Yellowhead will likely have to be replaced. And many of you probably know, if you go under the bleachers of that building, that's 100-year-old lumber, or nearly 100 years old, that lumber in there. Some of that lumber came out of the old building. Some of the stringers under the bleachers came out of actually the CPR station, which is way over 100-year-old lumber. But they made it out of a lot of used lumber. You never get away with that today. But it helped get the thing going and made it viable back in 1972. Another interesting point, there's only one member of the board of directors, the original board of directors from 1972 still with us in the community, and that's Glenn Cummings. He was on the original board as a young man and participated heavily in the Yellowhead at that time. So there's some observations for you, and thank you for letting me present it.
Thank you, Ken. No, Ken, it's, everybody at this table, we may not always agree on all subjects, but I mean, we always appreciate your decades of commitment to our community, so thank you very much. Anybody else? Any other comments, observations from the council?
I think one thing that that I find with the company that I'm involved with is Ken makes some excellent points in that. But when you sit down with a group of people, everybody can come up with a wish list, and it's usually like this. And then when you start budgeting, as you can see from our budget deal, it's kind of like this. And the unfortunate part is a lot of your points, a lot of good merit there, Ken. But it certainly means whether people are prepared to pay more for that as well. So, there's a cost to additional light, snow removal, there's a cost to new facilities and that. Excellent points, wish we could do it all, but yeah, they are some really nice wish lists.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay, if there's nothing else, nobody else, we're moving forward with the motion to close this public hearing. Moved by Councilor Butler. Seconded by Councilor Cox. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Neepawa do now open this public hearing at 6:20 p.m. All in favor?